Long, long ago, in a certain tsardom, there lived an old man and an old woman and their daughter, Vasilisa. They had only a small hut for a home, but their life was a peaceful and a happy one. However, even the brightest of skies may become overcast, and misfortune stepped over their threshold at last. The old woman fell gravely ill, and feeling that her end was near, she called to Vasilisa to her bedside, gave her a little doll, and said, "Do as I tell you, my child. Take good care of this little doll, and never show it to anyone. If ever anything bad happens to you, give the doll something to eat and ask for its advice. It will help you out in all of your troubles." And giving Vasilisa a last parting kiss, the old woman died. The old man sorrowed and grieved for a time, and then he married again. He had thought to give Vasilisa a second mother, but he gave her a cruel stepmother instead. The stepmother had 2 daughters of her own, 2 of the most spiteful, mean, and hard-to-please young women that ever lived. The stepmother loved them dearly and was always kissing and coddling them, but she nagged at Vasilisa and never let her have a moment's peace. Vasilisa felt very unhappy, for her stepmother and stepsisters kept chiding and scolding her, and making her work beyond her strength. They hoped that she would grow thin and haggard with too much work, and that her face would turn dark and ugly in the wind and sun. All day long they were at her, one or the other of them shouting, "Come, Vasilisa! Where are you, Vasilisa? Fetch the wood, don't be slow, start a fire, mix the dough, wash the plates, milk the cow, scrub the floor, hurry now, work away and don't take all day." Vasilisa did all she was told to do. She waited on everyone and always got her chores done on time. And with every day that passed she grew more and more beautiful. Such was her beauty as could not be pictured and could not be told, but was a true wonder and joy to behold. And it was her little doll that helped Vasilisa in everything. Early in the morning Vasilisa would milk the cow, and then locked herself in the pantry. She would give some milk to the doll and say, "Come, little doll, drink your milk, my dear, and I'll pour out all of my troubles in your ear. And the doll would drink the milk and comfort Vasilisa and do all her work for her. Vasilisa would sit in the shade, twining flowers into her braid. Before she knew it, the vegetable beds were weeded, the water brought in, the fire lighted, the cabbage watered. The doll showed her a herb to use against sunburn, and Vasilisa used it and became more beautiful than ever. One day, late in the fall, the old man set out from home and was not expected back for some time. The stepmother and the 3 sisters were left alone. They sat in the hut, and it was dark outside, and raining, and wind was howling. The hut stood at the edge of a dense forest, and in the forest there lived a Baba Yaga, a cunning witch and a sly, who gobbled people up in the wink of an eye. Now to each of the 3 sisters the stepmother gave some work to do. For the first she set to weaving lace, and the second to knitting stockings, and Vasilisa to spinning yarn. Then, putting out all the lights in the house except for a single splinter of birch that burnt in the corner where the 3 sisters were working, she went to bed. The splinter crackled and snapped for a time, and then went out. "What are we to do?" cried the stepmother's 2 daughters. "It is dark in the hut, and we must work. One of us will have to go to the Baba Yaga house to ask for a light." "I'm not going," said the elder of the 2. "I'm making lace, and my needle is bright enough for me to see by." "I'm not going either," said the second. "I'm knitting stockings, and my 2 needles are bright enough for me to see by." Then both of them shouting, "Vasilisa is the one. She must go for the light. Go to the Baba Yaga's house this minute, Vasilisa." They pushed Vasilisa out of the hut. The blackness of the night was about her, and the dense forest and wild wind. Vasilisa was frightened. She burst into tears, and she took out her little doll from her pocket. "Oh, my dear little doll," she said between sobs. "They are sending me to the Baba Yaga's house for a light, and Baba Yaga gobbles people up, bones and all." "Never you mind," the doll replied. "You'll be all right. Nothing bad can happen to you while I'm with you." "Thank you for comforting me, little doll," said Vasilisa, and she set off on her way. About her the forest rose like a wall, and in the sky above there was no sign of a bright crescent moon, and not a star shone. Vasilisa walked along trembling and holding the little doll close. All of a sudden, whom should she see but a man on horseback, galloping past. He was clad all in white. His horse was white, and the horse's harness was silver and gleamed white in the darkness. It was dawning now, and Vasilisa trudged on, stumbling and stubbing her toes against the tree roots and stumps. Drops of dew glistened on her long plait of hair, and her hands were cold and numb. Suddenly another horseman came galloping by. He was dressed in red. His horse was red, and the horse's harness was red too. The sun rose. It kissed Vasilisa and warmed her and dried the dew on her hair. Vasilisa never stopped, but walked on for a whole day, and it was getting on towards evening when she came out onto a small glade. She looked, and she saw a hut standing there. The fence around the hut was made of human bones and crowned with human skulls. The gate was no gate, but bones of men's legs. The bolts were no bolts, but bones of men's arms. And the lock was no lock, but a set of sharp teeth. Vasilisa was horrified and stood stock still. Suddenly a horseman came riding up. He was dressed in black. His horse was black, and the horse's harness was black too. The horseman galloped up to the gate and vanished as if into thin air. Night descended, and lo, the eyes of the skulls crowning the fence began to glow, and it became as light as if it was day. Vasilisa shook with fear. She could not move her feet, which seemed to have been frozen to the spot, and refused to carry her away from this terrible place. All of a sudden she felt the earth trembling and rocking beneath her, and there was Baba Yaga flying up in the mortar, swinging her pestle like a whip, and sweeping the tracks away with a broom. She flew up to the gate, and sniffing the air cried, "I smell Russian flesh. Who is here?" Vasilisa came up to the Baba Yaga, bowed low to her, and said very humbly, "It is I, Vasilisa, Grandma. My stepsisters sent me to ask you for a light." "Oh, it's you, is it?" Baba Yaga replied. "Your stepmother is a kinswoman of mine. Very well then, stay with me for a while and work, and then we'll see what it is to be seen." And she shouted to the top of her voice, "Come, unlocked my bolts so strong. Open up my gates so wide." The gates swung open. Baba Yaga rode into her mortar, and Vasilisa walked in behind her. Now at the gate there was a birch tree, and it was made as if to lash Vasilisa with its branches. "Do not touch the maid, birch tree. It was I who brought her," said Baba Yaga. They came to the house, and at the door there lay a dog, and it was made as if to bite Vasilisa. "Do not touch the maid. It was I who bought her," said Baba Yaga. They came inside, and in the passage an old grumbler nimbler of a cat met them as if to scratch Vasilisa. "Do not touch the maid, you old grumbler rumbler of a cat. It was I who bought her," said Baba Yaga. "You see, Vasilisa," she added, turning to her, "it is not easy to run away from me. My cat will scratch you, my dog will bite you, my birch tree will lash you and put out your eyes, and my gate will not open to you.